Dear friends, good evening and welcome to my YouTube channel. As we all know that, dear educators, today I'm going to talk about something very crucial and significant, and that is NEP 2020. And some changes have taken place and some are on the way. Therefore, it has become very incumbent and onus on the teachers and educators across the country in each and every level, whether they are CBSE teachers, whether they are actually teaching in the government schools, whether they are teaching in the small private schools affiliated to the state boards. So the major implications that would be, because technology is evolving very fast and the adaptability of the teachers, the educators, is a question mark. How to facilitate those places like semi-urban and rural areas. So accessing the technology is a challenge still. If we use mobile everywhere, we know that, but the training is required most specifically for the educators to access the technology tools properly, to actually transfer the knowledge and impart the knowledge into the mind of the students. And therefore this is a challenge that is really very much concerning, and that has also been actually indicated by the chairman of CBSE, Mr. Rahul Singh, who is an ex-IS officer and working as a chairman in CBSE. He's a very learned man. Therefore the concern that actually was raised by him was the accessibility and inclusivity. Inclusivity means, see that now the multilingual approach that is going to start, because change is always imminent to those kind of resistance where people are not able to understand the technological tools. And most frankly, that is the talking from the bottom of my heart. What I realize that only 40% of the educators in India across this country are trained in handling the AI tools. So therefore it has become very important today to train the educators the changes that are coming on the way. Therefore they actually can or could use these tools efficiently, properly. And the mechanism of this, the main problem in India is the enforcement. That is practically challenging task for all the organizations, and specifically when NCERT and CBSE, both of these great organizations are working together to harness the potential and to like if you see the kind of tools that they have like AICT, CIET, these all the training programs I have seen, and quite frankly, let me tell you that in terms of enforcement of the policies is really very, very challenging issue in India, and therefore one has to be very, very careful about this, so that education sector should not lag behind. And these changes, quite frankly, have some, they may have the repercussion for those people who are belonging to semi-urban or, rural areas. So let me tell you that the multilinguistic approach that has been proposed in NEP, National Education Policy, that the key aspect of it, one of them is multilinguistic approach. And therefore the criteria if you see R1, R2, R3. So giving the actually there is no intention of the government to phase out the languages. But here the most concern is that people should take advantage of their own local languages and their dialects and vernacular, and the actually government is trying very hard, and all the departments are trying very hard to make the resources available. Like we are lagging behind in the terms of the syllabus of 9th class. And if you see the changes that actually are taking place, very, very, when people are conditioned in the old, pedagogies, and something are similar. There is not quite frankly much, actually demonstration of this is certainly is having, only something that is very much required. That's a critical thinking and problem solving, and that is, experiential learning. So experiential learning is not of this, one day, journey. It has been in the, V8 courses earlier, and that is known as hands-on, activities and learning. Dear friends, today the concern is that R1, R2 and R3. One thing that already I talked about, accessibility and affordability and inclusivity, and also transparently quite having now the computers are being to be phased out. Other devices are being actually very relevant and practical in that terms, because those students, and as far as matter concerned about the educators, they cannot carry the computer everywhere, they cannot carry these things everywhere, and the situations as in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, where these things actually, and therefore the computers, because a simple child belonging to the middle class family, poor class family, and specifically PWD, physically weak students, challenged students are actually also in Divyang students. So there is a the sense of urgency for them to ensure inclusivity. Therefore, education is being accessed to all the people of this country across all the spectrum, and therefore changes are required. And see, English language is in third R3. That is not the intention to phase out. In terms of global engagement and business and governmental organizations and courts and the other degrees, higher education, it is not being done. But the problem is that since I remember that, because I was a student when I quite learned in the village, and then I happened to see many things that I struggled through those things, and I was actually ultimately overcame these things by resilience, hard work and tenacity. But the challenges are still lingering on. They are there, frankly, without any doubt. So let me tell you that when the multilingualistic approach, actually there are approximately 1,500 Indian languages and dialects in different states and regional languages, and the challenges are there. That yes, of course, translation would be available. Yes, of course, there would be virtual lab in the coming future, and there is no denial of that. And therefore, one has to, an educator specifically has to be equipped with these topics. So something that is going to be replaced is, one is the computer system. That is, in physical computer system, the big devices will not be actually, they are going to be phased out, and some other devices and tools are being actually experimented, and they are being explored, and therefore they would be actually introduced very soon in the coming future, as the objective that is from this this approach is actually in preschools and elementary classes, specifically this 6th year, this year 2026 and 27, the changes that are going to take place in the 9th class. So if we see that across these things, one has to understand that what is the intention and what is the objective, gradually make people comfortable. And let me tell you the example, because if court decision come from High Court, does not function in other languages. Supreme Court is also not actually functioning in other languages. These all things and verdicts are always given in that form in PDF, and big 40 pages and 100 pages of these PDFs are given, and those people who are not having the affordability of this language, they cannot access to the actually explanation, and they are counted on other people, those who are actually able to decode those terminologies of the courts. So AI has been actually in 2020 already it has been actually implemented there in the courts, Supreme Courts, when the virtual decisions and verdicts were actually delivered and given. And therefore, since that point of time and up to now, this is great step, and gradually those practices, those were traditional and custom based, they are going to be phased out. Dear friends, I am telling you now that with the attention with regard to the ENP 2020, the main objective is to actually disseminate the data. This is the age of the data management, data governance, how to handle the data in any organization, and how to make it very feasible so that the employees and educators actually could utilize this practically, and they can actually have no roadblocks and other hazards that are actually there. So there are many things, training is actually being given across the country for the educators, and it is the onus on the educators and the teachers of all the institutions to take these things very, very seriously, because you cannot deny the changes are there, and they will certainly take over gradually by the time of 2031. So this is the objective of that. And let me tell you that Indian culture, heritage, and all these things, like if you see the different subjects being introduced there are some optional subjects now, but gradually they will take over, and ultimately the students have no choice in that terms, irrespective of the language. See, languages will be there. There is no question mark. People are talking about this language will be phased out ultimately. No, there is no risk at all, because you cannot actually eliminate the technological language English from the scene. It is very impossible for any government on the any particular country of this world to phase out this language, because it's the language of technology, it's the language of court in our country, it's the language of all the departments, whether they are government departments, whether they different departments. So people are much accustomed to these things. These are not the impositions, these are actually the tool of the technology, and therefore if you see, that's why the government is trying very hard to push the boundary to translate the languages very, very efficiently through the artificial intelligence, and experts actually have been working for a long period of time since 2020, and after that the gradual shift that is being taken place is quite frankly very, very appreciable. But let me tell you that there are some repercussions on those people that I have mentioned about that. There is no question mark about that. Now let me talk about, leave aside the objective of the NEP, and see the kind of things that are being emphasized. That multilinguistic approach that I already talked, critical thinking and problem solving. These things were, when there was no AI, Newton was there. When there was no mobile and phone, Albert Einstein was there. There were gifted children were there. But this attempt is to facilitate and leverage the kind of content of teaching to make it accessible and inclusive and affordable to all the people of the country, irrespective of their caste, creed and religion, so that everybody could feel comfortable and the kind of understanding of education. So accessibility is the prime concern, inclusivity is the prime concern, and affordability is the prime concern in terms of actually this transaction of knowledge. So these transactions are actually very, very important, specifically if you see 2026-27. So in 9th class, that are the changed and sets books are not available right now, but very soon they are going to be uploaded into the websites of CBSCs and other website of them available there, schools and organizations there. Let me tell you R1 level. I'm not going to go the detail of, actually I have read the NEP 2020, I have analyzed it, I have quite frankly understood that without any doubt. Yes, there are something that actually one has to analyze, raise questions, and one has to answer and be accountable for those. That's what government is doing very hard to make it streamline the process before the 100% implementation of virtual, this transitioning is required. So first R1 level, what does it mean? Educator has to understand. Please, if you don't understand, just watch my video. Recall and reproduction. What is that? Meaning basic remembering and understanding. Student ability can recall facts. And what is that? Actually, definition or concept. First R1, definition or concept. And focusing on memory-based learning. So rote learning is not all of a sudden being phased out. It is gradually be phased out when we are shifting from R1 to R2 and R3. Let us understand it also in terms of language. R1, R2, R3 is there. So suppose define photosynthesis. List the state of India and write a formula, and then write keywords, recall keyword, identity, and list define. So these are not actually involving or engaging critical thinking or problem solving, but in the first phase in R1, this is that to know something for being accommodated, that the changes are coming in the further time. That's quite frankly very, very important. So next one is R2 level. So here, understanding the definition, understanding the something, the information that is not inviting the opinion to go through very deeply, frankly, but understanding them and identifying them. That's a very important process. And R2 level. So application, this R2 level will be actually implemented. The R1 level will reach to R2 level, where R2 level application and understanding, meaning using knowledge in actually familiar situations. So those situations which you learned in the R1, these are going to be actually applied into the R2. That is different situation. Dear friends, students' ability can explain ideas and apply concept to solve problems. And this is R2. So R1 knowing something what that is, and in R2 what on that basis, just reaching to the conclusion and interpreting it, the ability explaining ideas and apply concepts to actually solve problems. So Newton presented the law of motion. So let me tell you very, very frankly, some of the teachers and every educator actually knows about this, that the third law of motion, because on that basis the aircrafts fly, take off or land on the ground. So therefore these are the principles. Application of concepts is into the R2 level. And friends, focus is understanding and application in R2 level. And therefore it's very important. Explain why plants need sunlight. And solve a math problem using a formula. First knowing formula in R1 and R2 actually using the formula to reach to a conclusion and to discover something. And then describe causes of different things like events. Then we are reaching to the third level, knowing what it is, then knowing and applying that particular what and the content into the practicality. That's very, very important. And R3 level, actually that analyzing, evaluation and creation. So analysis is there. Application is R2, knowing what is content in R1, definition, and then going to the R2 level, application of those concepts which and then R3 level, analysis, evaluation and creation. So it requires high order thinking skills. Students' ability can analyze, evaluate and create new ideas. So that's why researches are actually being explored, and a lot of research are going to actually take place in our country in terms of the NEP 2020. Focus is that's very clear. Critical thinking in R3 level is there. You have to understand first what the content is. Now applying those content and concepts into the practical is our R2 level, and then R3 level is that to discover new ideas, analyze them, and create something new. So that's very important. Compare two political systems. I'm telling about that. So there is, a curiosity to understand that how these policies are and what are their functionalities and how you can actually take your opinion and you can view the things as per your own perceptions. And next, analyzing the impact of climate change. This falls under the, R3 level. And then inventing something new to tackle the issues of ecological imbalance, climate change, and other, different problems in terms of ecosystem and ecology. Dear friends, we have to understand very frankly that the NEP emphasizes critical thinking, multilinguistic approach that is known as multilingualism, and critical thinking, problem solving. These are the basic component, the soul of the NEP, National Education Policy. Make students very nice, ambassadors, very nice, resource person, very nice, writers, poets, authors, and then making them leaders so that India can flourish and prospers on that practical basis, and therefore it is very, very important. And these are not the concepts that have been adopted by, actually over a period of time they have grown and developed across the world, not only on the basis of any specific country. This is the collaboration and access to the technology and global impact on repercussions and implications of the educations, businesses, trades, and the diplomatic relations and all other things. Now, if you see, R1 is basic, knowing the content. R2 is intermediate, that's very, very important. And then R3 is advanced. So there you can do the research and to discover new idea and being creative. And here we see skill focus, memory understanding, and application, critical thinking, and creativity. These are the core principles, soul of national education policy, as per these have been created by the great educationalists and great researchers and scientists. Dear friends, actually thinking carefully before concluding, and see here decision making, choosing options based on evidence. And if you talk about this, critical thinking is the ability that you see. I am going to explain about critical thinking. That is the ability to think clearly, logically, in important thing, that's independently, not the imposition of something. That's a very, very important thing. And next one, key features, and I would like to talk about this later on, but let me tell you about the key features. Questioning. If there are questions being raised, the answers would come. And if you don't allow the questions to be raised, it means there is no progress, there is no development, there is no growth. That's the big mistake that people are doing. And questioning, asking why, how, is this true? Analysis, and then breaking information. What does it mean by analysis? Breaking information into parts to understand it better. And the third, evaluation. What is evaluation? Judging whether something is reliable or not. And fourth, logical reasoning. Collecting ideas in a sensible way, not in illogical way. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. May God bless everybody. Thank you so much.